don't even know what I'm looking for. Oh, the squirrels, that's one.
Oh, your photography?
Yeah, some of it, yeah. You know,
Somebody said I need photography. They got my attention. When you get settled in, you're all right.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't
No
wake you.
No.
Cool, let's get going. So let's not to waste anyone's time. All righty.
The parking lot is busy, so.
It is. It's 6:30. Let's call the meeting of the Charter Township and Meridian Planning Commission regular meeting of April 22nd, 2024 to order. Start with a roll call. Commissioner McConnell.
here,
Commissioner Bloomer.
present.
Commissioner Scales.
Present.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah.
Commissioner McCurtis.
Here.
Vice Chair Snyder.
Here.
And Alice Shrewsbury Chair is here. All right, thank you. Now is the first point in our meeting where we have public remarks. If anybody would like to give public comment now. We don't have any public hearings tonight, so this would be an opportunity to talk if you'd like to. Okay, seeing nobody, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the agenda for tonight.
I move to approve the agenda for the April 22nd.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Scales, second by Commissioner Bloomer. Any discussion? Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. And then now we are to item 5, the approval of the minutes of the March 25th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. The minutes are in the packet. Someone like to move approval of the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Support.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Commissioner Brooks and supported by Commissioner Scales. Any discussion on the minutes before we approve? There was one note when we were talking about the change in structure to the board. There was a comment attributed to me that said we were doing it because of comparable size and quorum. And I went back and re-listened to make sure that's what it's minor, but I didn't say we were doing it because of quorum. I said the questions that we had asked, you know, that our decision to be supportive of this was not related just to chair space on the dais, but that we had asked questions about the impacts on, so I don't know if it matters to clarify that, but I just.
I can clarify that however you want.
Okay, yeah, I just that, you know, we discussed a number of topics, but not that that was why we were making the, I just don't want it said that we're making the change because of quorum.
Oh, okay. I'll go back and listen.
Okay.
If that, and kind of catch that better.
That would be great.
Okay.
But other than that, I didn't see anything else if anyone else didn't. Okay, great. So with that, all in favor of approving the minutes with that minor amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved with a slight change. Any communications, item 6, that we haven't already, we don't have anything on the agenda in the
Nope.
packet?
No communications.
Okay, and no public hearings, item 7. Unfinished business, we have none. And so I think we're down to item 9, other business. First is Village of Okemos concept plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So briefly, under the MUPUD ordinance, there is a section that allows developers to submit for concept plan review to the Planning Commission and the Township Board. Staff plays essentially no role in this at this point. We are here to facilitate only and receive the feedback. I'm gonna be scribbling notes furiously as we go along, even though I don't have to because we're recording this. But the developer is looking for feedback on the modified plan for the Village of Okemos. And what you have this evening are 2 concepts. So you have 2 concepts in front of you this evening, A and C, and I apologize, my memo says A and B, it's A and C.
Okay.
B was tossed out.
Okay.
In both, so in building A, Buildings would be located on Okemos Road, turn the corner at Hamilton about 100 feet, almost identical north and south. There's 78 dwelling units, about 2,500 square feet of commercial, parking to the rear, and I do want to note in both concept plans, there is parking located on the former properties owned by Renee Corey that I am highlighting here at the corner of Clinton and Okemos. Plan B would push the two buildings onto Ardmore Street, slightly different. They'd be, northern building would be 96 dwelling units and about 2,700 square feet of commercial. Southern building would be 102 and about 2,700 square feet of commercial. Parking would be then to the north, or to the east along Okemos Road, and again on the Corey property. In both scenarios, they do also include these properties along, this is the Red Sea River. This is a park/stormwater detention area that is required for the project. Additionally, in both scenarios, there is potential for a second phase, but that is not under review at this time. So at this point, I think what I'd like to do is turn it over to the applicant, let them talk about this further, and then allow the planning commission and the applicant to have a dialogue on the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening. My name is Eric Helzer. I'm with Advanced Redevelopment Solutions, representing the ownership development team for the Village of Okemos. And with me today, I have John Peckham with Advanced Redevelopment Solutions, and AJ is with Kebs Engineering. And we are here to answer any questions after I give an overview for the project in both plans. There is make sure here. I think this is a good overall. Is this the one you sent? Isn't it? Do you have the one with the highlight on it by chance?
No.
Okay, that's fine. I can kind of try to. Okay. I'm going to just kind of illustrate so you can put everything in perspective for with what he had said. There's another drawing here that he'll be bringing up here in a moment. But this block right here, this obviously shows where the buildings were in block 2, and in block 1 is this northern block. And these are the two development blocks that we're talking about with the frontage along Okemos Road. The Renee Corey parcels that he was referring to are down here. When you see the outline, it'll make a lot of sense, and you'll be able to tie everything together to the two plans. And then what we're calling the deliverance parcel is down in this particular area here. It is 3 tax ID numbers, goes all the way to the corner, comes on an angle this way, and involves these parcels down in here. So this goes back, you've all heard about this project for years. We've been working on this. We started pre-COVID, and unfortunately, COVID had a big turn for not only us, but a lot of projects in the state of Michigan and across the country. Out of COVID, a lot of commercial aspects have changed. The world changed dramatically with online shopping. There was really no demand for commercial, nor could anybody finance commercial coming out of COVID. And there were no lenders that would finance commercial developments. That was the biggest problem that we had with this particular development, with the amount of commercial that we had originally planned for in that original project. Out of COVID then came inflationary aspects of labor and materials that added many, many millions of dollars to our project just in vertical construction, in addition to our underground and the environmental costs. And then on the heels of that, to curb inflation, were higher interest rates. So this project being fully built out, better than $90 million, had blown out of proportion quite quickly, like a lot of projects of this scale. So where we are today, we are with that the reduced plans, and then I'll go back to Plan A. Let's see if we got Plan A versus Plan, yeah, that's Plan A. If I can get that off. There we go. Plan A, meaning everything is fronting on Okemos Road, as Tim had explained. There were a total in the full build out, there's a total of 4 buildings, 2 on each block. What we are proposing is to take the originally approved and more recently approved amended MUPUD, and we're breaking off the building that fronts Hamilton at this pass-through point here on both blocks that were originally leading to a parking structure that was on both blocks, if you can follow my outline in my hand. This is a natural break. It's a nice natural break for the project to complete in a 2-phase approach. Phase 2, whatever that project may look like, gives the flexibility to continue down Hamilton Road to the west on both blocks. What will be triggered is surface parking will then be converted to structured parking, like the original plan and the original amended MUPUD. So this 2-phase project would allow for that. Important facts that you saw in Tim's memo that I'd like to mention, which are points of discussion. We had always planned that this part of where I'm highlighting here on both blocks, this is where the power lines are located. Those would be underground power lines. So that's the high voltage power that is there. Very expensive to underground. And if the township can find the means and the method to finance that, then this plan can move forward. The other advantage is to this plan, be it expensive, with this boulevard on Hamilton that you can see here. This was something that was desirable when we did the amended MUPUD. That boulevard can stay into the plans if the high voltage power lines are buried. If the high voltage power lines are not buried, we were pivoting to what he alluded to as a plan B. So when we met with township representatives a little more than a month ago, the plan B was to take these same buildings and slide them to the west, enough distance to allow for the construction of Okemos Road and the relocation of the power lines still overhead. Unfortunately, that took a lot more acreage than we had originally conceived because we never spent the engineering time with Mr. Kilpatrick there. And so what we ended up doing is bailing on Plan B. This was not feasible. So then we go to Plan C. Oh, just scroll down, thank you. In Plan C, we flip the buildings from along Okemos Road to the Ardmore Avenue side of things. Very similar approach. We're wrapping the corners, so we have that hard corner on each end. And then in phase 2, then that can continue to the east toward Okemos Road. Parking would then be on the Okemos Road side. You'd be looking in from Okemos Road into the development at this angle. Thank you. Yep. So as he's doing that, in both plans, the goal is, and this is something that's always been discussed, the goal is to have commercial on the corner, whether it's on Okemos Road in Hamilton, the 2 hard corners there, or on Ardmore in Hamilton. So we have actually produced that in both of these approaches.
Something wrong with the computer.
That's okay.
That is my worst nightmare, like giving a presentation and the technology just fritzing out on me.
Oh, is that it?
Always
Oh,
on
yeah.
computer.
It's the worst.
I've got a question based on what
Well, and I have a quick question for staff. I'm sure we have lots of questions on this, but just staff, if
Yes, ma'am.
you could clarify, our role tonight is to hear this and ask lots of questions,
Yes.
right?
Any
We're not-
feedback, question,
Feedback, questions,
concern,
concerns,
love it, hate
want
it,
more
want it
information.
upside down.
Okay, so I'm sure we all have a lot, and so is this the only opportunity that the viewing public has to see this, or is this presented in other venues as well?
The
And,
township board will also get this on May 9th.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So is there anything else you wanted to share with us, or can we start?
Yeah, just a couple final points for both of these. So again, both plans having the commercial on the corners. of the,
What he says first,
of the intersections. One thing that's an advantage to Plan C versus Plan A, obviously Okemos Road is a highly traveled road. Plan C does give a better living experience for the residents in the buildings here at this location. That is one a plus. The only way that Plan A gets built again is the burial of the power lines. Plan C allows for the project to move forward, and if at some future date under Plan C, just so you have the full understanding of what would be happening, is if Plan C got approved and was built, and a Phase 2 was to get completed here, the burial of the power lines would be required if construction was going to go to the full corner. Okay, so Plan A being flipped versus Plan C. And the boulevard would have to go away at that point in time as well. So that's something to keep in mind. If Phase 2 moves forward and they stay overhead, the building would have to be pulled short of Okemos Road on both blocks. Okay? So that's a general overview of that. The last point I'm going to make is this property that's along the Liverance, as we call it, along Red Cedar. So for the last couple of years, we've been talking to the DDA and working with the DDA very closely. Because we have a stormwater management requirement, currently, based on what we've done in our calculations with AJ's firm, is that this is where the stormwater will be held. There's a pipe that comes in here across Liverance. It gets intercepted. We collect everything here that flows off of the development itself. Before then, it discharges, so it's a cleansing and is also going to be a nice amenity. We're committed to providing either through easement or just through plain out giving this to the township for a park in the village. Would be a very accessible park for not only our development, but the residents in this area to basically enjoy and be able to have a path. This shows a concept plan of a pathway around the property and some amenities that would be on the river as well. And so that location, again, not highlighted is here. You can see it if you follow my arrows along the Red Cedar River. That's that property I was just describing there. So that's it with that. It's a big overview of it. Be happy to answer some questions.
One thing, the cost
Yeah.
on the burial of the HVD is in excess, the last estimate we got from Consumers Energy was in excess of $500 to bury that.
That's right. Yeah,
Did that
thank you.
get picked up on the microphones?
Yeah, can you repeat that so that?
Yes, so the burial of that power line from Consumers is in excess of $4 million. That was the last cost. Latest estimate, which was
Well, that was probably now, I'm gonna say 6 months ago.
about 6 months ago. So just to give you a perspective of what we're dealing with on that power line.
Commissioner Scales, you had a question?
Commissioner McCurdy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Curtis, please.
Sure.
Start and we'll
Just-
just go around until we're done.
Yep, thank you. Just a couple of questions, not sure if you can answer them, but in terms of, I see that it's mixed use, multi-use zoning or what have you, if that's the plan. So is that where you will have, will it be structured where commercial is on the bottom and residential is on the top, or side by side? What is the plan there?
Yes, so the plans are, and this is actually shown in earlier illustrations for Plan A. For this particular corner here, it's first floor commercial that wraps around this edge here. And then commercial can continue down the street in Phase 2. In Plan C, the commercial is at this corner right here on both, and this is on both blocks, so I know I'm only highlighting one, but it's like a mirror image of each other. And then again, when Phase 2 moves forward, Phase 2 can continue on the street front of Hamilton. So everything is anchored by the corners and then fronts Hamilton.
I just have two more.
And that's first floor, all first floor.
Got it. I just have two more questions. if
Sure,
that's just
please.
Real quick. Thank you for that. In terms of the that area, the parks typically flood a lot, but is there a concern about, I mean, I know you're further down, but is there a concern about flooding there? I know there's a flood plain here and zone and all that, but
Yep.
any way to alleviate any type of concerns?
We can't alleviate it, we can't impact that, unfortunately. That is what it is. That's what these two lines are showing here. You have floodplain and floodway. And so these are the boundaries that we cannot impact. So everything on this side of the line to the river does flood occasionally. The last flood was the 100-year flood, I believe, which was 4, 5? The house did not, no. There's actually a home right here that you can see along Liverence. And it did flood very close to that house that's there, but it is technically in the floodplain.
Okay. And then the last one, you talked about a parking structure. Are you talking like a parking garage?
It was a 2-layer parking deck in the amended MUPUD that you can find on the website that was approved. I know a lot of this was most of you here all on the board. Let me go back to that drawing. That's on this one, yep. So there was an entrance on each side of the streets and these back streets here for Plan A, and you would enter on one level for the lower level, and on the other side, the other entrance on the side streets would get you to the second level. So it was a 2-level, ground and second level.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm all set.
Thank you. Commissioner Scales?
Sure. Thank you very much for coming in and bringing this to us and explaining it to us. You and I go back a ways. Historically, one of the main issues that stopped this project from moving forward has been the burial of those power lines and who's going to pay for them.
Mm-hmm.
And now hearing 4 million, that's obviously tolling, because that's much higher than what I remember in the past. It was something like 1.2, 1.5 million to bury those cables.
Yeah.
And it was balked upon. So I'd like to look at and focus on the project of if the cables are not buried. And I heard 2 different corners you were talking about based on, one, if the cables are buried, commercial being on Okemos and Hamilton Road.
Correct.
2, the commercial being on Ardmore, and did I hear Hamilton and Ardmore also?
Correct. So
Those are
each
2
corner.
very different corners.
They are. So let me go back to Plan A, and then I'll land where you want to land, which is the one without the burial, okay? So the commercial has always been to anchor both corners. And originally it was presented and approved in the amended MUPUD as in one phase, and both corners were going to have commercial, as well as frontage down Hamilton, okay? So now without burying this is where maybe part of the confusion could come in, is this, let's assume this is Plan C. The burial lines don't occur. This is where commercial would be located, where you see my hand hovering there, and this location as well, right here. Phase 2 would move to the east on both blocks with the balance of the building to the extent it can, depending on the burial or not burial. So let's say miraculously somehow the township finds the money and consumers' price goes down or whatever, then you can go back to a hard corner in that phase 2 with commercial in this location. If not, the building would be pulled short. It wouldn't be much of an add. It would continue down, but it'd stop short about here. And it could have commercial there, but it wouldn't be all the way up to the corner if the lines don't get buried and that they're still overhead. So But this is the plan that we're proposing, which is a single phase. We don't know when, what form phase two would look like in the future, but this is the plan that we're presenting.
And how close to the curb are we talking about?
Are you on Ardmore? Or is that what we're talking
On
about?
Okemos or Ardmore?
So it's essentially zero lot line, but AJ, do you want to, what is it roughly?
17 feet along Hamilton
Okay,
and 22 feet along Ardmore.
and that is because a lot of sidewalk and parking. So we're adding parking on Ardmore. You can see here, we're showing angled parking on Ardmore. And is it parallel parking? On Hamilton. Parallel parking on Hamilton, and then sidewalks and plantings, and then the building.
So
that's-
scaling that for me, is that less or more sidewalk than what currently exists?
More,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Much more walkable, much more desirable. Yep.
Commissioner Bloomer? Oh, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I've always been under the impression that the whole purpose of this project was to make an inviting and environmentally friendly downtown area. That's the whole reason for an MUPUD. It seems to me that under your Plan C, Okemos Road sees nothing but a very large parking lot. And it seems that and there's no guarantee that there's ever going to be sufficient financing for phase two. So it seems to me that Plan C, although it is more financially available and potentially, I suppose, even easier to build, I don't know, but it defeats the whole purpose of the MUPUD. It doesn't create an environmentally friendly attitude. If you're driving up Okemos Road, all you see is a huge parking lot. I guess what I'm asking is, do you have any plans to improve the aesthetics of the parking lot as you drive by on Okemos Road, if that's what you ultimately end up
Oh,
with?
certainly. This would be landscaped, and we could do some really nice things to buffer that from Okemos Road. I understand, a lot of people feel that this is the four corners. Let me go to this aerial. So it just naturally, when you look at an aerial, you're thinking, okay, this is kind of the village downtown. It's these 5 blocks, right? And that's what people naturally think. When we were doing all the charrettes and working with the neighborhood, there was a lot of discussion that this road is so busy and carries so many cars and is so loud and people scream through here that it's not really inviting. Okemos Road shouldn't be thought of as the main road. What should be thought of as the main road is Ardmore and Hamilton, this being the main intersections. So looking at, granted, there's 5 or 6 different property owners in here. You've got this nice historic brick building that's located there, and this bleeds off into the neighborhood. But maybe this should be considered the downtown, and just because it's separated by such a busy road. Things might have been different when the concept of the bypass was thought of. You know, there was talk about the road coming over here and coming in this way, something like this. I may be a little bit off, AJ, but it's something like that. But yeah, so this corner in Plan C becomes the focal point into the neighborhood. There is a great opportunity down the road for redevelopment. We've looked at alternate plans. Obviously, Douglas Shea owns this particular block here. A couple different owners in this location. But I don't disagree with you. That's what the idea was all along. But we have to live with what's here today. We have Okemos Road and we have these big power lines.
Go ahead, Commissioner. Go ahead.
It's like I'm missing some points.
Thank you. Since we're talking about Okemos Road and the traffic on it, I wonder if you might review for us a little bit how the changes to the lane configuration of Okemos Road how that comes to be. When you just glance at the drawings, you see more lanes, and that's got to come from somewhere. So if you could review how that part works. I'm also almost understand how the boulevard can and can't exist in different circumstances, but I haven't quite got my head around that yet. So those are my two things.
Okay, no, those are great questions. I'm gonna have AJ actually help me with that first question related to the design of Okemos and the lanes.
The widening of Okemos Road and the traffic study and all
Yeah.
that.
Is there a way to zoom this in?
I'm not familiar with that.
So, Okemos Road would be widened to the west into our development. We'd be adding an additional lane on the west side of each. It would start at the intersection of Methodist, would begin widening so that we could have a left turn lane and then two pass-through lanes. Then those two pass-through lanes would come through, and then it would bring it back to just 4 lanes at the intersection of Clinton. This configuration also widens the radiuses at the Okemos Hamilton corner that would allow a turn lane. I believe it's at least 1 turn lane, it might be 2, going south onto Clinton, or south onto Okemos Road, sorry. And we've got right turn on Hamilton and a straight on Hamilton. Actually, it's a right turn straight, and then there's also a left turn. The entire signalization of that intersection would be adjusted as well and timed along with the whole Okemos corridor.
Excuse me, while you're
Yep.
right on that topic, is Hamilton Road currently wide enough to support that, or would you have to widen Hamilton also?
It would get, it's fairly wide right now. I believe it's 4-lane width. The whole right-of-way is about 99 feet wide, so there is room for that to work.
Thank you.
All of these roads would be completely reconstructed. Okemos, Methodist, Ardmore, Hamilton.
And all the utilities associated
Clinton.
with it, water,
Yes.
sanitary, sewer, due to their age and.
AJ, the right of way on Okemos Road.
Yeah, the right-of-way, in order to add that additional lane on Okemos, the right-of-way would get widened to the
Into our,
west.
into our property.
Yes, into our property.
You're effectively granting an easement to the road department.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, that road widening is what is causing the overhead wires to need to be moved closer into development, which puts it closer to the building.
Since you're on that topic with the boulevard, he had a question about the boulevard and why it can stay and when it can't stay and due to the fire.
Right, where for fire and emergency services with the overhead wires there, if you have a 5-story building, then you're using the large fire trucks with the ladders, and they cannot fight the fire underneath the power line from Okemos Road, which means they have to come on to Hamilton in order to service either one of the blocks with the taller buildings. And there is not enough, with the boulevard, there's not enough room there for fire and emergency services to access and protect.
So that's why we lose the boulevard in the scenario where we can't bury the power lines.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't get closer to Okemos with the buildings, it's just in order to fight the fire along Hamilton.
And there may be a particular height that could be possible, but if they're gonna try and fight the fire from Okemos Road, then there can't be a boulevard.
We talked about, down the road, we don't know, just conceptually trying to plan for the future. We could step the buildings to the east, drop them down, step them down, so that they get a little bit lower, to accommodate what he's talking about. That's a possibility, but again, something we're not working on right now, so.
Thanks. One last thing in the A versus C, some of the on-street parallel parking is shown as outdoor seating plazas. Those are just different options of how to use that real estate, yeah?
Yeah, in Plan A, that has already been flushed out with landscape islands or areas and park benches and stuff like that. And we haven't had a chance to flush out the landscaping with Plan C, but there's ample space available in here. That right now there's a 7 or 8 foot walk we're showing going through, and then we still have 15 feet of, right now it's shown as green space, but that can be turned into some type of outdoor seating plaza type activity area.
The Plan A design was nearly 100% construction documents. Well over $1 million has been spent on that. Off-site design of Okemos Road and Hamilton, all the utilities and the engineering associated with it. So Plan A was definitely what we were going for until the prices and everything, and unless money can be found to bury the power lines.
Thank you.
I'll go now if anyone else is still thinking. I have to say, I am really disappointed. I recognize the realities of economics and finance, but our township gets one chance to do this right. And having just been downtown in Brighton the other day, meeting friends for dinner and seeing how great their downtown looks, I feel like this has shrunk, and it's continued to shrink to turn into something that could potentially end up looking like a strip mall from Okemos Road, because you have parking space on the street and then buildings set back, and all you're gonna see is those buildings and a bunch of cars. I don't care how well you landscape it, it's not going to be the downtown that was initially proposed. I get that there's reality and all of that, but it is incredibly disappointing. And seeing the concept of the boulevard and the outdoor seating for restaurants and things like that down Hamilton Road that would start to bring that community that we were looking for, and that feels as if that's kind of gone by the wayside. If I understood your response to Commissioner Scales' question about Ardmore, when he asked about Plan C with the commercial there, it's only facing Hamilton, so the first floor of the Ardmore facing, would that be commercial also, or would that be residential?
That would be residential, only wraps the corner
So-
right there, does not continue down. And it was never going to have commercial down that road, nor was Okemos Road. The focus was always Hamilton, hard corners, both hard corners eventually, and Hamilton. It was never Ardmore or Okemos Road to have commercial.
Yeah, it's just very different, and I guess.
But the approved amended MUPUD shows that too. There was never commercial on those two roads.
Right, but there was commercial
On Hamilton.
on Hamilton in a way that gave you sort of two facing blocks with one another.
Correct.
I'm just saying, I know that the reality is the reality. I don't in any way dispute the economics of what you're talking
Understand.
about. I'm saying that what is being proposed now is very, very different than what was initially envisioned, and that's just a really hard step to take, and I'd be very, I don't know the extent to which we have the ability to control this, but it's a little
Well,
disappointing,
it's
so.
some of the things that you're not aware of too over the last couple of years, and Mr. Schmidt and Amber knows as well, very well. We've been working so hard with the state. We've got great support from Eagle on grants and loans related to the environmental. We've got a couple of $1 million just in environmental. These are, one of the sites is hazardous, the other, they're both very contaminated. We still have to deal with all of that. You have such expense in the off-site infrastructure, and then adding the burial of the power lines. Nobody is sadder than the development team and owners back in California, I can tell you that. They've spent millions, they've acquired this land. With the pricing and everything that's gone up, to finance this, it's evidenced in all of the amendments that we've done to the PUD process, how committed the team was to trying to get to what you're discussing and what you're describing. This gets us to a project, and without the support that we thought we had a lot of promises from various state agencies. It didn't come through, unfortunately, and we're left with trying to do something the best we can.
Please, yes.
I was just curious, why the significant difference between the square footage of the commercial space between Plan A and Plan C? Plan C is like half as much commercial space versus Plan A?
They both have around 5,000 square foot of commercial along Hamilton, split up, or, for each one of those. Plan A also has a basement area at Clinton at Methodist and Okemos that is a fitness center. It's a basement fitness center. Well, it's called a basement compared to the first floor, but because Methodist drops down, it's.
Garden level?
It's like a garden.
Yes.
Exactly. Great, yep, exactly.
So that would be additional, it's almost 4,000 square foot of fitness
So for the
center.
residents?
I think it residents, and then it was also going to be.
Yes, it was open to the public. as well.
Public as well.
Yeah, for sure. One of the comments you had too about, I don't forget which one, about the commercial. We were gonna anchor the two corners. The idea was with a restaurant on each of those. I know that was something that was very desirable to a lot of folks. The amount of parking that type of development takes and requires is another factor in the plans that you see here now. That's why if some time down the road that is to happen and be allowed to do a phase two, a parking structure is built that would accommodate the amount of volume that would come with a restaurant of that size. But, comment about, Brighton, I love Brighton. I used to live just outside of Brighton for years, in downtowns like that, or Howell that you see, those kind of cool, quaint downtowns. We don't have that kind of density. Brighton and Howell, the density is tremendous. Our density here is much more sprawly in nature, and all of the activity is out on Grand River for the most part, from a commercial standpoint. So we would be drawing, this would become a very quaint, very small, very unique, localized use. We're hopeful that the commercial that we have in Plan C, and then maybe at some day in phase two that could front Hamilton as far as we could go to the east, will offer those smaller type shops. One other thing that we also talked about that is in our letter, and where it was inspired, would be pop-ups in the summer. And I don't know if you read about that, but to activate Hamilton and Hamilton up through Okemos, that corner in Plan C, we could have those pop-ups. And that would allow for lots of different uses.
Sorry, repeat that last sentence.
To that cave.
So that is something too that we're definitely open. What can we do to activate and make it a little bit more lively and walkable and for other uses? In the winter, things die down, as you know, when people walk and so forth. So this would be much more attractive in the spring through fall.
So by pop-ups, I did read that and that sounded sort of interesting. Do you envision, like, you described it as something, but I hadn't been to the Detroit example that you mentioned. Is it like food truck court, or is it like structures like they have in downtown Lansing that end up being like a farmer's market type thing, or?
No, these are, they're physical structures in nature. They're movable, and then they can be rented out and locked up and closed up at night where people can keep it. He named it in the letter. You can actually Google it and find it, and there's some really good renderings and some pictures. You can see those structures. Downtown Muskegon has a very similar one too, that where they have those kind of pop-ups and they move it around, and their plan was to move it around, but it's just so popular. It's this spring through fall usage. It's a similar type thing as well in Muskegon. So there's another idea. You can look at the Muskegon website and look at that. Mm-hmm. Those are just ideas that we, totally open working with the township on to continue activation.
When you see that happening in the parking lot?
Up along Hamilton, correct, yep.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Brooks.
Just bear with me for a few minutes. I'm gonna have a lot of questions. So I'm just gonna rattle through them one by one. So my first question is, so you mentioned the boulevard, does that go away in both phase twos?
Sorry, say that again?
I thought you mentioned that the boulevard disappears in phase two at
If,
some point. Is
It's-
that accurate?
if you want to go full corner and all the way up to Okemos Road, the way it was originally planned, and have that frontage, the boulevard would have to go, or we would have to pull it short somewhere kind of like where my hand is. And if we pull it short and maybe step it down, there's a possibility. But my understanding is that the boulevard would have to go away for that phase two. So
For the fire
for
emergency
the fire.
access.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that, and so what I'm asked, so thank you. So my question from that is that, does that happen in both plans that we're discussing? Or is it just Plan C?
It's just Plan C. Plan A only gets built if the power lines are buried, just so we're very clear. Plan A can only be built that
Right.
way, yeah. The Plan B that was alluded to in here, which when we talked to staff and we thought conceptually would work, was to take the Plan A buildings and shift them far enough away from the power lines. But it pretty much landed the buildings over here. We lost no way to access this front part between Okemos and where the new front of the building would be along there. We lost way too much acreage and too much parking. It ate up too much of the land. So, yeah, Plan A has to have the burial of the power lines.
Okay, so it's the burial of the power lines that dictates the removal of the boulevard.
Correct.
Not the type of plan.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. We may have to modify some things in phase two of Plan C, because that hasn't been looked at, but.
Right.
But yes, it's that. Another factor too, I know everybody liked the boulevard. That's another costly item. And, how much public infrastructure can the township absorb? That's another, so that's a very important piece to think about. When we look at projects and try to look at cutting costs, that is one thing that jumped out in conversations, was to remove that boulevard.
Is there an example of that, of the boulevard that we're talking about in the larger Lansing area that you're aware of?
Think of one. The only one I'm thinking of is Michigan.
Yeah.
Up to Washington.
For the Hannah Center, there's a boulevard in Hannah Boulevard.
You know what I
There's
mean,
a
Michigan,
Boulevard in there.
right there at that corner, when you come up to the roundabout. There's that boulevard right there.
I was doing one.
Here, next down to one lane, and it's got a left turn, but they run into a roundabout. Yeah, nothing's jumping out that's exactly the same.
Okay.
But the boulevard feel that I'm thinking of is the one on Michigan Avenue, downtown Lansing, as you go west toward the roundabout of Washington Avenue, right by Washington Square.
Okay. So if
Just
that-
after Grand, as you're going west.
Yeah. So if that adds additional cost, so why did we originally request that? Or what was the original intent of that?
With the original MUPD that had commercial fronting on Hamilton on both sides, we were going to do, innovative lighting. We were going to string lights across the streets to set it up so the street could be shut down and you could have an evening city center through the entire street. And the boulevard allowed for things to be placed in the middle to, open things up.
And on the road once it was closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And traffic calming.
Also
Yeah,
traffic
definitely,
calming.
definitely, yes.
Yes.
So it slows down traffic, basically?
Correct.
Yeah, necks it down. Yeah, when people see boulevards like that, they tend to slow up a lot.
Yeah, no, as we've learned from the islands on Grand River. So, and I realize this is sort of in the future, but just touching on the power lines again, So for if we elect or opt to move the power line burial to the future, who would pay for that?
That would have to be a township expense as well, yes.
Okay, so you're saying that in both plans, the township would be responsible for the power line burial?
Yes, and all infrastructure, yep,
Okay,
yep. Public infrastructure, not private. We're
Sure.
talking The public, yep.
okay. Okay, some of these are gonna jump around, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to do them in order, but they may jump around a little bit. Do you currently own the Livermore Park area already? Do
Correct.
you own all 3 lots?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep. And the Renee Quarry parcels, we own everything.
okay. This is sort of a higher level question. So if commercial is such a problem, why are you proposing any commercial? Like if it's that difficult to do?
So there still is a desire to have some commercial, it activates it. Conversations are, we don't want just a straight up apartment building. This allows for the opportunity, the attempt to initiate that commercial, and then if and when a phase 2 occurs, then that can continue hopefully in that pattern.
Okay. Just to clarify, so there is commercial, and under Plan A, there is commercial on the corner of Hamilton and Okemos, right?
Yes.
Under those two, yeah, under those, or under just that, no, under Building A and Building D there,
Correct, both.
yeah, okay.
Along with the gym on Okemos under here, the garden level.
There's a gym there?
There's a gym, a garden level gym that's open to the public, yes.
In the basement level, garden level.
Oh, I see.
The grade drops off substantially as you go north. And so all of that has daylight windows into that. And it was a great opportunity location to do that.
And is that gym owned by the developers, or is that another business entity?
It could be either. We've got situations where it's either,
Okay.
yeah.
Speaking of that, do you have other businesses that you've thought of for the commercial lots already, or is this?
No, we had, early on before COVID, we were talking to lots of different people. We had restaurants at one time.
Yeah.
After COVID, things dropped off dramatically. We did, discuss in the last year, like going back last year, before we started going down this road, how we're gonna handle this project with brokers, key brokers in the market. And the amount we can get in rent per square foot doesn't even come close to meeting our cost to construct. So there are communities that subsidize the commercial, and there was discussions early on with the township through the DDA that the rents could be subsidized in order to carry the load for the deficiency in the rents. Obviously, that didn't happen. That's why we're here today with the reduced commercial. But that does occur in some communities where they desire commercial in order to try to prop it up for a period of time and to get that built.
Touching on the parking, is the parking that's proposed that's publicly accessible, is that gonna be charged parking, or is that free parking?
We hadn't modeled it for that way. That was a discussion item that we, kind of laid out there. Depends on who manages it, maintains it. There's a lot of factors. You don't have a parking system, that's one thing. We're in a DDA. The natural thing is that DDAs do it often, but this would be a new item for them. What we had, though, was a lot of flex parking inside of that parking structure. So there was, when the residents are gone, it was open and available to more of the commercial tenants and people that would be there. However, as tenants would come in, those would start to load up for those flex spaces. So there was a combination of those going on in the original amended MUPUD.
One of the comments that was made earlier was about the, basically whether or not you would want to live on Okemos Road or you'd want to live on Ardmore, because of the traffic. And I was curious, do we know actually how busy Okemos Road is except during peak traffic time?
There was a traffic study, John. How long ago was the traffic study done? Do you remember? It was a while back.
That would have been, this is 24. I believe it was completed early in 2022, I believe.
So we could pull that. I don't recall the
Okay.
counts and don't have that here, but
Yeah.
we can look at that.
One more and then we'll pass it off to someone else.
Oh,
Go ahead, no,
Oh.
go ahead and ask one more, but then.
Yeah, great
we'll pass it
questions.
on. You can, I was gonna say, and then you can come back if you have more.
I know that you mentioned a lot, or we've talked a lot about the financing of this project. I can't recall what the outcome of this was. So is there funding from the regional, there was like congressional appropriations in this district that is helping to fund part of this project?
We did get a portion, Ms. Clark, what was the dollar amount that we got from the Alyssa Slotkin appropriation? Was the question. Just ballpark. You're gonna give me an exact number, aren't you?
Sorry, Amber.
That's okay. It was far less than what we had hoped.
Hi, good,
Hi.
good evening. So the Community Projects Fund has a system of appropriation, and so we have been allocated $1.65 million dollars toward this project. So there were some specific parameters about the project type, the unit count, and affordability. But yes, if the project were to go forward, that's how much the project would be allocated to the DDA.
A majority of this, that's a good point, I'm glad you brought that up, Amber. Majority of this project is workforce housing, which was one of the parameters that she's referring to, and it was also one of the parameters in some of the other applications that we were seeking for funding to go towards the costs of this project. So we, subject to the award, we're still committed to delivering that in both plans, just so you're aware. So we won't lose that funding.
Okay.
As long as we build that, so.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead, Commissioner McConnell, you had another question?
Yeah, a comment and a question. The creation of a park is a huge amenity, in my view. Riverfront property is at a premium, and I understand the kind of practical motivation to buy a patch of land that you gotta dig a hole in to capture the stormwater, but it looks to me like the applicant went well beyond that and has invested real money in real property that will turn into a once-in-a-lifetime amenity. Sure, you can get from this property down across the bridge and get to Want Park and Ferguson Park, and that's great. If you have limited mobility, being able to get down to that riverfront there, to me, is a huge deal. I just wanted to underline that. And, yeah. And the other issue, not to get to the end too quickly, but there's kind of a Plan X at the end here that says, folks talk about having it green in the meantime.
Yes.
And that there's some portion of the site that could be planted out while the gears move. And I'm wondering if we could get some more information, not necessarily right tonight, but maybe to the Environmental Commission, about what those areas are and what you think might work there in terms of turf grass, yeah, or some form of remediation, naturalization, whatever it is. I can imagine there being some availability on the township's part to participate in that.
Thank you, I'm glad you brought that up. Didn't want to cloud all the discussion here with that. So we are definitely in favor of doing that. However, there are some practicality issues that we are dealing with because of this property. Obviously, over on this corner here, this is obviously the aerial with the buildings that are in place, but this has been completely excavated and there's a hole in the ground. There's sheeting and shoring that's at the corner. and that was due to a hazardous excavation. That is remained open. There is going to be a partial basement, that was the original plan in that location. That area is still significantly contaminated. We purposefully did not remove the asphalt and the concrete across both blocks upon demolition of the buildings. And when we demolished the buildings, we did remove complete full extent of footers, foundations, and basement walls. Nothing was left in place intentionally. We engineered backfilled it properly, and then we put several feet of crushed stone at a certain elevation so that rainwater would go off of that area over the asphalt and concrete so that we were not going into the subsurface with rainwater. That is super important. We cannot remove the concrete, the asphalt, or those improved areas where the building footprints were, because we would be bringing and introducing rainwater into the subsurface, which would exacerbate the contamination that's there. We have 3 petroleum plumes from former petroleum products and gas stations and underground storage tanks, as well as the former dry cleaner that was there and chlorinated solvents. That would, the direction of groundwater is this way, here, and that would then flush contaminants to the Red Cedar River. So this has been very carefully planned when we did the demolition and everything. So what can be done would be the perimeters of the property much more easily to kind of obscure and green as you look in. But our plan is to begin construction once we get through all the process and everything. If we move forward with Plan C within the year, hopefully even this year, depending on how quickly this part of the process can move forward. That's what the owners would like to do. So whatever we spend this year, just know it's probably going to be ripped up. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks, did you have any more? Does anyone else have any? Commissioner Scales, go ahead.
So if I heard you correctly, the contaminants are contained, they have not been completely removed.
No, nor would they ever be 100% removed. That is correct.
So you have like BTEX,
We have every petroleum product between polynuclear aromatics and BTEX, yes, related to underground storage tanks, and then we have chlorinated solvents.
so what would it take to get something moving on this project?
Well, Plan C is the quickest and, oops, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Plan C is the quickest and obvious of the two because it avoids dealing with one major cost, being the burial of the power lines. That's a major stumbling block.
So you need a decision.
That's what we're looking for, is a decision, yes, on either Plan C, or Plan A. But Plan A is a much bigger discussion for the township, I think, with the cost of burying those power lines. It's just a feeling that I get through the meetings that we've had. It's just a huge number.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Snyder.
I'm not sure I've ever known what the residential options would have been in either scenario. So just real quick, like what does that mix look like in, the 198 units in Plan C versus Plan A?
I think it's on the plan, that one.
I can't zoom in.
Yeah, we can't zoom in, but I don't know if maybe I can take a picture of it and blow that up.
It doesn't have the beds in there, it's in a separate plan, but
Okay.
it's a mix of studio, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and then I believe there's 1 3-bedroom on one of the floors.
And that doesn't matter which plan, like that's the rough mix.
That's the rough
Okay.
mix. Yeah, we do have
it's
counts
rough
on all of that, and that was in the original submit. Oh, he's got a blown up here. This might help. Let me go to my server, see if I can find it real quick.
The ones that Bergman put together. Oh. The color stuff that has the nuances on it.
Yeah, I might have it right here.
And the plan for these was, these would be rentals, not condos.
Correct, correct. I believe the mix was just over 50% was one bedrooms and studios. And then about 40-some percent was gonna be two bedrooms, and then the remainder would be three bedroom.
We're looking for the
What
Bergman.
was your, I guess, what's the like target market for that, for those residential spaces?
So the target market's workforce housing, 80 to 120% of the area median income. Most of Lansing, including this area, we tend to be over in this area a little higher of that spectrum, more in that 90 to 120. If you go to other areas of the greater Lansing area, they tend to be in that 60 to 90 realm. We start getting into affordability below 80%. But we're talking teachers, nurses, firefighters, police people, you know, we're talking people that work at restaurants and you know, service-oriented folks in that workforce realm.
What's the rent range?
I believe it was between like 1,100, wait, I'm doing this from memory here, I can pull this up here. Depends on which plan. It's like 11 to 2,400 is, if memory serves, 1,100 to 2,400 a unit, depending on the size of the unit.
That's it.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I just have a few more.
Please go ahead.
I'm almost done. Thinking about this even further into the future, this is the first phase of the development, and then we've talked about the second phase of the development on these specific blocks. And is there, I can't remember if this was mentioned, and I'm sorry if this is repetitive. So would the other two blocks, or not other two blocks, but on the other two, pieces of property across Ardmore to the west, are those also potentially developable? Or is it just the southwestern one?
I believe it's just the south, was this one included in the,
Oh, okay, you're
Downtown?
talking,
I mean, it was,
no, that one, yeah, here, I can hover.
Sure.
So there's multiple properties here, multiple owners.
Yeah,
In this particular block, there need to be land assembly for something of this scale that would have to be done. This block is owned entirely by Douglas J. They were originally part of the project in an early conceived plan and working with them. But things have changed again. COVID changed their business model, and so they're staying put in this particular block and are not part of the project. Originally, they were going to be a major anchor in the development and was mainly one of the drivers to the large amount of commercial that we had in our block because they were going to relocate their operations there. That was going to free up this block for future development when they relocated into our two blocks. So it was going to be this corner. So anywho, yes, that's possible, but you know, we don't control that.
Yeah.
That's their business operations.
yep, okay, but in terms of what is currently owned, it's that,
These two blocks,
right, those two blocks.
right here, yep, the Renee Corey parcels right here, and then all of the
Right,
park property that went stormwater retention,
okay,
yep. And they're not, they're purchased, they're not under option or purchase agreements, they're purchased.
okay. Thank you for answering all my questions. I just have a couple comments that I just want to offer as a citizen seeing this. I realize that there's a lot of money being spent by who you're representing. But there's also a bunch of state and local money that's being offered here. And so I would encourage us to think about all of those resources collectively, and that the state and local is a large amount. And that you're also talking about the money that you've spent, but you're also gonna make money from this project, and you're targeting this place because you're going to make money in this great community that we represent. And then my last comment is, I think we all have probably heard about this project, but since a lot of us were new, I think it would be helpful in future potential conversations to think more holistically about the project so that we have a little bit more background information included in these kinds of conversations, just because of the nature of how long this project has progressed. But I do appreciate answering all my questions, and I really do want to see this move forward and turn into something that we can have in the community. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bloomer.
Can you show us on the map, the burial of the power line, which is creating such a dilemma for everybody involved? Where does it start and stop? Is it just on that
Goes-
block here? Or how long of a, $4 million to bury how much line?
They're burying 2 blocks of line only. They will come back up on the outside of our 2 blocks to allow for this to occur. But it continues both north and south down Okemos Road.
I think that John Peckham with Advanced Redevelopment Solutions. I think the important thing to understand regarding the power line is it's a high voltage distribution line, okay? So it's not a service line that comes to like the township offices. It's a distribution line that goes to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So the complexity to which it's gonna be encapsulated, and my last understanding was it would be in concrete or some sort of a steel structure so that it cannot be ruptured in the future. So-
And accessed as well.
and accessed. And so not only that, but there is AT&T fiber optics that's buried in Okemos Road, right near where this is gonna have to get buried. So between sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water, public streets, the high voltage distribution line, the AT&T fiber optics, you have got spaghetti, okay? And it sounds real simple to just bury a line for 2 blocks. The complexities that are gonna go into that, and I'm not justifying anything, I'm just stating what the challenges are to be able to accomplish what we all like to see happen. So I hope that helps out.
I guess, given that the lines have always been there, when the project was first conceptualized, wasn't that an issue right from the start for the developers? I mean,
It was a much lower
Always been an
cost.
issue.
Yep, it was a much lower cost. We had financing at the time. COVID hit. Again, I'm going backwards, I know. But there's a lot of factors that raised not only the cost of our development, but all of the offsite. It went up by millions. Yep.
Go ahead, Commissioner Scales.
I remember also there were some discussions about raising the lines.
Yes.
What was the resolve of that? Was that not practicable?
Yeah, do you want to jump in or jump in? We were always under the impression that that was an option, but that is not an option under that plan. Yeah. But we have plenty of discussion and documents on that and meetings on that, but that's an unfortunate.
That's, I believe, even with it raised, you still, they wouldn't put the ladder truck underneath the lines.
Yeah. That was something that was discovered later in the process with the fire marshal.
I have a question on Plan C with the buildings closer to Ardmore. What would the face of the side that faces Okemos Road look like? It'd be a 5-story building. Would it be a 4-story, I'm sorry, with like decks overlooking the parking lot, or is that the side that, like, what are you envisioning as the elevation for that?
We haven't gotten to that level of detail. We wanted to start with the concept plans as far as that, but that clearly would be something of discussion.
And then the side that faced Ardmore, same, or do you have a vision for that already?
Probably more along the lines of what was originally portrayed in the prior amended MUPUD
Okay.
would be along Ardmore.
Okay.
Yep.
But not.
But again, this building hasn't been designed yet, and it's not through the process like we had on Plan A.
Okay. I thought, for some reason, I thought that at one part of the plan, there was some access and or commercial on that side of it, but you're saying that that's never been the case.
So there was commercial here, right, only right here in plan.
On the corner, but not on so the Okemos frontage on the first floor would have been residential?
Yes, it was.
People walk, like, right driving by?
Correct.
And that still would be in Plan A?
So in plan, yep, it'd still be in Plan A. We do have visuals and those are in presentations, they're on the township
I've seen
website.
those, it's been a while, but yeah.
Yep, that's okay. So from about this point here, where my hand is, and the same thing on the other side, running this way to stopping to about right here, there's residential. And then that's where the gym picks up. And then same thing on this side going south, about this location, all the way down was residential. Yeah, you'll see those, the sidewalk going by, it was landscaped, it was like a private little patio area there for the first floor residents.
Anyone else have questions, comments, thoughts?
Hopefully the windows of the gym will have a nicer view than they currently would.
Okay, so now what? We've had our opportunity to ask questions. Share what we're thinking now. What's our next step?
Thank you very much. There's nothing else the planning commission needs to do. We will take this to the township board and have a similar conversation with them. And then the developer will make some decisions on how they want to proceed.
So we've helped you practice now. Warmed you up for the township board.
We appreciate the time, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. We really appreciate you taking the time to answer all of our questions and help us understand it better. And I think we all want to see something happen. We all recognize that something's better than an empty lot, so, but we need to proceed smartly and wisely. So, thank you. All righty, so getting you back to our agenda here. Next on the agenda is the item 9B, which is the Village of Namoka ordinance update discussion. So take it away.
Good evening. You give me a second, I'll pull the packet up and see what I'm looking at. And I will zoom in. Go. Okay. Per our last conversation, staff heard some of what conversation, obviously heard the conversation was going on. We've come back with some suggestions. Just so you know, just to remind you, we've taken the text that was referenced in the current RN district, spelled out that text so you could see it both in land uses and dimensional regulations. And then looking through it, we made some suggestions, like I said, under paragraph B. We probably don't need item 5, temporary buildings. That language is redundant and found elsewhere in the zoning ordinance. It's already covered. That's kind of a cleanup. We do recommend deleting item 7, golf courses. While it's not likely a golf course would come to pass, if we're talking about what makes the village of Namoka area unique, I don't think a golf course is one of those things. We don't need item 10 because signs are likewise regulated. That was one of the things that you were finishing up right when I started, was a massive sign ordinance overhaul. It's working really, really well. Under paragraph C in special use permits, we should add group childcare homes. That conforms with state planning law. And then also under special use permits, you can delete item 4, incidental commercial services. The uses there are more intense than what you currently find in the RN district. In addition to that, looking at the parcels and the things that are currently there, you might want to consider administratively rezoning Eye Care Associates of Hazlitt at 57 Marsh from RN to PO. The businesses to the south are similarly zoned. There is no other office use in the Village of Namoka district. At this point, I can take questions, comments, and we can move forward with this. We can back it up however you want to go from this point. If you want to move forward, we will schedule a public hearing.
Any question? I thought last time we talked about historic district.
Oh, I got
that as a
another.
potential. Thank you. Was that, I'm sorry, was
He
that?
did good research on that.
Oh, good.
I did research that. I did not find any evidence of any designated historic district for the Village of Namoka. What I did find was an ISBN reference to the Village of Namoka Study, a neighborhood survey on residential needs, written by J.W. Cravens in 1981. Mr. Cravens got his Master's of Urban Planning from MSU in 1981, and what I think I found was a reference to his master's thesis or a capstone project.
Got it.
I was not able to find the project or find the document. So that was the result of that, but I don't find any evidence of,
Okay.
of certainly not a local historic district at all.
Thank you. Commissioner Scales?
If you need a motion, I would move that we agree with staff and permit them to move forward with this.
Do we
I
need a
don't think
motion
we need
for
a
this? I think
motion.
we can just, if,
A voice vote would be good.
Yeah.
Just an indication whether this would be back in June. It's not in time for the May 13th meeting. The second May meeting was conflict with Memorial Day, so this would be the first meeting in June.
okay.
Then I move that we encourage staff to move forward with their recommendations to us.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Okay. Moved by Commissioner Scales, second by Commissioner Bloomer. Any more discussion, thoughts?
So I guess we're expecting resolution at a next discussion? Is that what's going to happen next?
For an ordinance
Yes.
amendment, right?
An ordinance amendment.
For an ordinance amendment. I'll leave the rezoning for another day.
Okay.
That's,
That was
I'm
gonna be my
not
question.
gonna, I won't push that unless you want me to. I just want to put on your radar, you do have one non-conforming property in there, and it could be more appropriately zoned.
And that would be a separate action regardless?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
I'll just deal with the text change.
Got it.
We got a lot of things going on right now.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments on the motion on the floor to ask that? Okay. I think we can just,
Sorry, I do
go ahead,
have
please, yes.
I'm just curious about the, so we're striking, so you're saying you're striking the golf courses, the signs. Does that make the ordinance different than other RN district language? Because you're striking those?
No, we have a sign ordinance that covers residential districts that would apply to the RN district. Most of these are clean up, most of these are,
Okay.
and that's in line with things that we've done over the past 2.5, 3 years. We've cleaned up a lot of the ordinance and taken out a lot of those redundant
Okay,
references.
so,
This is the only RN district in the township, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so this is just,
Oh.
before it referenced the RB, zoning, and now this is explicitly pulling those things in there and then making it unique to RN so that this is now defining, so, did I get that right?
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
Hey, I've been paying attention.
Well, clearly I haven't.
No, I think you were out, I did not mean that, I think you were gone the
Okay,
time that we
thank
talked
you.
about this in more detail.
That
Thanks.
helps clarify.
But yeah, that, because it was confusing to me at first, but I think that may answer your question.
It does, yeah, thank you.
Cool, thanks. Anything else? Any others?
There's still a motion on the floor.
Yes, we are. Okay, all in favor? I don't think we need, we can just voice vote it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you very much.
I'll get this
We'll look
moving
forward to
forward
that.
for you. Thank you.
Okay, so next is item 10, reports and announcements, Township Board update.
It should be good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long do we have here?
Thank you. So at the last township board meeting, they did approve the licenses for recreational marijuana facilities at Jolly and Okemos and at Haslett and Okemos. Those are the two that are in existing buildings, so those are the easy ones to move forward. The one on Hagedorn Road, they had an additional robust discussion about, and that will be back for decision on May 9th. The township board also took action and approved the ordinance reducing the number of planning commissioners to 7. So this is your current layout for a while. We can move your seats around however you'd like. And lastly, just want to thank all the planning commissioners for their work and assistance with my staff. We, as I'm sure you are aware, the township board appointed me as the interim township manager on Sunday. And so increasingly, Brian will be the man for the planning commission going forward. And I have all faith that he is going to be able to acquit himself very well with the board, with the commission.
There's at
Obviously,
least a half a dozen good jokes built into that, too.
I know. I am obviously always available for anything that any citizen needs, and more than any, the volunteers that are the lifeblood of us doing the work of the citizenry. So if you need anything from me, I'm still definitely around. Just might be a little harder to get a hold of for the next couple weeks here as I drink from the fire hose.
We
Thank you very
appreciate your
much.
time here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then liaison reports. Does anybody have liaison reports or any questions, I'm sorry, from Mr. Schmidt before? Okay, go ahead.
Environmental Commission, the April 27th, next recycling day at Chippewa, document shredding and collecting bicycles and metals and latex paint, which they turn into more latex paint, which is kind of a magical thing. I don't know how that works. And also, we, at the Environmental Commission, have been allocated a budget by the Township Board for some of our ongoing activities, such as wetland education, flyers mailed to residents about wetland education and other activities. And are looking for input from other boards and commissions on projects that they believe are of interest and fit within the Environmental Commission's purview. My recommendation is to look at the things on the implementation list of the master plan or in the preserving the environment section of the master plan, since that's what we recommended. I think the causes that will lead the charge are those that have someone leading the charge. So if there's something in the master plan that's environmental and you want to be the champion, let's hear from you.
Is there a time frame for those recommendations?
Before our May meeting would be best.
Okay, thank you. Do you have suggestions that you'd like us to suggest? How's that for giving you a lot of fun?
At the last Wednesday morning Green Dialogue, a guest was a fellow whose company in Ann Arbor helped us develop our 2004 green space plan. And in our master plan, we call out updating that. So that's a project that's near and dear to my heart. And the same firm did the Red Cedar Greenway plan on campus, which is now the River Trail mixed-use path. So that's kind of at the top of my personal list, but there's plenty of other stuff on there about low-impact design and other things. So we invite your suggestions, thoughts, and championship.
Any
I have
other?
an update on the CIA. So the CIA made two actions that are of note. The first is that they approved Comerica Bank as the, basically like the, I don't know how to define it, the holding bank for the CIA's TIF for Grand River. And then they also reviewed the first draft of the request for quotations to develop like a visualization of what the Grand River corridor could look like. So I think they will vote on that at the next meeting.
Thank you. That sounds interesting. Yeah, look forward to hearing that. Anyone else have updates to share? Okay. Project updates, so we have a list here, right? Yes.
I hope this is helpful. I got the idea rather than just presenting the list every time. It occurred to me that maybe you don't know what I've changed. Yes. Sorry, you're.
Go ahead, please, Commissioner Scales.
Thank you. I see our car wash is getting a lot of news attention because they're about to demo the Outback. And that was on the news. They just didn't state a date. Did you know, or do you know when this is coming about?
No. I think we've heard discussions, but I don't think we've received a demo permit at this time.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, you see, you have the list. I've been trying to talk to building officials to find some of the stuff that falls under the radar and kind of put this on at the end. So you got, when you get to the end there, Hazlitt's doing some store renovations. We have a Hazlitt barbershop that is, you know, under building review for internal renovations. Kind of things that is going on in the township that might be nice for you to know, but you wouldn't see because they don't have to come in for any of your approvals or anything like that. They're not even site plans. They're all building permits. So I've been trying to get some of that and include so you get a kind of a more complete picture, and I'll keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to know. Okay, public remarks? No? Okay, thank you. So nobody to speak. Any commissioner comments? Okay, and then with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner McConnell. Is there a second?
I support.
Seconded by Commissioner Scales. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:03, 8:02.